Station 34 Bravo is an automated weather platform at 9,200 feet in the Cabinet Mountains of western Montana. No personnel, no caretaker. A sensor array on the north face of Mount Keating transmits readings to the National Weather Service regional office in Missoula every 6 hours without human involvement. On January 11th, 2021, the satellite uplink went silent. The weather reports kept arriving every morning for the next 3 years, handwritten, in blue ink, on NWS standardized forms, mailed in Manila envelopes from a post office in the town of Orvis, population 340, at the base of the mountain. I've maintained remote weather stations across 4 states for 23 years. Equipment fails. That's normal. What is not normal is receiving handwritten weather reports from a station that has no personnel assigned to it. What is not normal is receiving them every day for 3 years. What is especially not normal is that nobody at the regional office questioned it. But I'll get to that. I need to talk about Elena Vasquez first, because everything that happened at that station starts and ends with her. Elena was 34, atmospheric scientist, adjunct researcher at the University of Montana, studying air quality at high altitude. She'd been awarded a 6-month contract to collect data from Station 34 Bravo, starting July 2020, solo posting. You hike in, you maintain the equipment, you collect your samples, and you hike out when your term is done. Her contract ended December 31st, 2020. She never came down. Her mother called the university when the weekly phone calls stopped in January. A missing persons report was filed in February. Search and rescue focused on the access route between the station and the Orvis trailhead. Everyone assumed Elena had tried to descend in winter conditions and gotten into trouble. The trail from 34 Bravo drops 4,000 feet, over 11 miles, 2 exposed ridgelines, a river crossing that becomes impassable after heavy snow. They searched the route for 3 weeks. They didn't find her. They didn't check the station itself. Why would they? The weather reports were still coming in, every morning, right on schedule. As far as the system was concerned, 34 Bravo was operational. Someone was there, filing data. The station was fine. Nobody asked who. I was assigned the maintenance check in March of 2024. The satellite uplink had been flagged as non-functional for 3 years. Budget cycles, staffing shortages, competing priorities, remote stations fall to the bottom of the list. My supervisor handed me the work order and said the transmitter probably took a lightning hit. Swap the board, recalibrate the antenna, confirm the data feed, come home. Before I left, I stopped by the regional office in Missoula to pull the station's file. Standard preparation. The clerk brought me a filing box. Inside were 1,096 Manila envelopes. Each one contained a single NWS weather observation form, filled out by hand. Neat blue ink, temperature, wind speed, wind direction, humidity, barometric pressure, precipitation, cloud cover, every field completed, every form dated, every envelope postmarked from Orvis, Montana. 3 years of daily weather reports, written by hand, mailed from the base of a mountain, received and filed at the regional office without a single inquiry. I asked the clerk who had been processing them. She checked the intake log. One name appeared on every entry. Diane Mercer, administrative coordinator. She'd received, date-stamped, and filed every envelope for 3 years. I asked to speak with Diane. The clerk said Diane had transferred to the Boise office 6 days ago. I called Boise. They said Diane never reported for her new position. No forwarding address, no contact information. I put the filing box in my truck and drove to Orvis. The hike to 34 Bravo takes 2 days from the Orvis trailhead in good conditions. I went with 2 junior technicians, Kyle and Espinoza. We carried replacement transmitter boards, tools, and provisions for 5 days, and the growing suspicion that this was not a routine maintenance call. The trail climbs through old-growth forest for the first 6 miles, then breaks above the tree line into alpine meadow and scree. The station sits on a granite shelf just below the summit ridge. You can see it from 2 miles out, a squat gray structure with a sensor mast and solar panels on the south face. Reinforced door rated for 100-mile-an-hour gusts. We reached it on the afternoon of the second day. The first thing I noticed was the chimney. Station 34 Bravo doesn't have a chimney. It has an electric heating element powered by the solar array. Someone had cut a hole in the roof and installed a metal flue pipe. Smoke stains streaked the exterior wall around it. The door was unlocked. I went in first. The station is a single room, roughly 12 by 16 feet. Instrument console along the north wall. Storage cabinets, a small work desk, battery bank and power management system under the console. It looked like someone's home. Sleeping bag against the wall. Camp stove. Enough canned food to last a year. Organized by type with the kind of precision that tells you something about the person who stacked it. And crossword puzzles. Hundreds of them. Newspaper crosswords, puzzle books, pages torn from magazines, completed in blue ink. The same blue ink as the weather forms, stacked neatly on the corner of the desk. On the desk, beneath the crosswords, a small ring box. Burgundy velvet. I opened it. Empty. I checked the instrument console. The sensor array was operational. Temperature probe, anemometer, barometer, rain gauge, all functional, all calibrated. Someone had been maintaining the equipment, replacing batteries, cleaning the sensors, adjusting the mast after wind events, professional quality maintenance. Then I checked the satellite transmitter. This is where the first explanation collapsed. My supervisor said lightning strike. The regional office said equipment failure. I expected a burned board, maybe a corroded connector. The transmitter was intact, undamaged, but the 2 primary circuit boards had been physically removed from their housings, placed in a plastic bag on the shelf above the console. Clean removal, no damage, no corrosion. Whoever did this knew exactly which components to pull to kill the uplink, while leaving everything else running. The station wasn't broken. It was deliberately muted. Someone wanted the sensors to keep recording, but didn't want the data transmitted digitally. They wanted paper they controlled. Kyle found a journal on the desk, a standard issue field notebook, the kind we use for maintenance logs. The first entry was dated January 14th, 2021. The handwriting matched the weather forms. Most of the journal was mundane. Equipment checks, propane levels, notes about resupply trips to Orvis, comments about the weather, about the isolation, about missing someone named Sarah, about the crossword puzzles being the only thing that kept her mind from going in circles. Elena hadn't left. She'd been there the entire time. The second explanation formed immediately. Voluntary isolation. It happens. People go to remote places and decide not to come back. Stress, burnout, a need to disappear. Elena was under academic pressure. Adjunct positions are brutal. Maybe she chose the mountain over the career. But Elena hadn't touched her bank accounts in 3 years. She hadn't contacted her mother. She'd been reported missing. Search teams had spent 3 weeks looking for her body, and she was here, a 2-day hike from the trailhead, and she never walked down to tell anyone she was alive. That didn't sound like someone who chose to stay. That sounded like someone who couldn't leave, or someone who wouldn't. That evening, Kyle and Espinoza set up camp outside. I sat at Elena's desk with the filing box from Missoula and started going through the reports. I'm not a meteorologist, but I've worked with weather data for 23 years. I know what normal readings look like at 9,200 feet in the Cabinet Mountains. I compared Elena's data to actual conditions from the nearest operational station, 40 miles west. They didn't correlate, not even close. Her temperature readings were too low, too consistent, and had nothing to do with what actually happened on that mountain. But the wind speed values were what stopped me. They were clean numbers: 4, 7, 12, 15, 22. No decimals, no fluctuation. Real wind doesn't behave like that. Real wind is chaos. These numbers were chosen. For 3 years, Elena had been filing fabricated weather data. I sat with that for a long time. Then I went back to the journal. The front section was the daily log I'd already read. Mundane entries. But in the back section, behind a cardboard divider, there were pages of dense handwriting, a format I didn't recognize, columns of numbers, letter codes, references to dates and times, and at the top of the first page, in Elena's neat blue ink, a header. Observation key. The first line read, "Temperature high equals head count." I stared at it. Then I pulled a report from the filing box. January 15th, 2021. Temperature high, 6. I'd assumed it was 6 degrees. It wasn't. Elena recorded 6 people that day. I pulled the next report, January 16th. Temperature high, 0. Nobody. January 17th. Temperature high, 8. 8 people. I went through a week of reports. The temperature values weren't climate readings. They were a census. A daily count of human beings observed from the station's vantage point. I went back to the key. Wind speed equaled time. The hour of observation, encoded as a 2-digit number. Every wind speed reading I'd dismissed as impossibly clean was a time stamp. She was logging when they moved. I checked. January 15th, wind speed 3. 3 a.m. January 17th, wind speed 4. 4 a.m. They moved at night. Wind direction was the approach vector. Which direction they came from. Barometric pressure was duration. How long the activity lasted. Precipitation was cargo, an estimate of how much was being carried. Cloud cover was a category code. Clear meant foot traffic only. Partly cloudy meant vehicles. Overcast meant combined operations. Elena hadn't been filing weather reports. She'd been conducting surveillance. For 3 years, from a granite shelf at 9,200 feet, she'd been watching something in the valley below, encoding every observation into weather forms, mailing them to a regional office that filed them without question. I went to the station's west-facing window. Below the ridge, the terrain drops into the Keating River drainage, a steep, forested valley, no roads on any map, no structures, no trails, wilderness designation. There is no reason for anyone to be down there. According to Elena's data, people had been moving through that valley on a regular schedule for at least 3 years. I decoded a full month of reports. The numbers told a specific story. Groups of 4 to 12 individuals, arriving from the northwest, moving through the valley, departing to the southeast. Activity concentrated between 0200 and 0500 hours. Vehicles on certain nights. Cargo values that fluctuated but never reached zero. An organized operation, running through a wilderness corridor at night, on a schedule. I pulled the station's historical files next. Every technician who's ever been posted to 34-Bravo submits a log. Most are perfunctory. Equipment status, maintenance completed, departure date. But I went back to 2008. Marcus Webb, contract technician, posted to 34-Bravo from April 2008 to March 2009. His logs were sparse, standard entries, equipment notes, but in his final month, February 2009, the entries changed. Longer, more detailed, and in the margin of his February 14th entry, a handwritten note. Someone's been here, not us. Boot prints at the east sensor. Equipment moved. Latch on the storage cabinet forced. February 16th. Lights in the valley. 0304, maybe 5 sources. Moving south. February 22nd. More lights. Same time. Same direction. Who is down there? March 4th. Something is wrong. Someone came to the station last night. I didn't hear them. The rain gauge was repositioned. The door was unlocked when I woke up. I always locked the door. March 4th was Marcus Webb's final log entry. His contract ran through March 31st. He was reported missing on April 8th when he didn't show up for his debrief in Missoula. Search and rescue found his truck at the Orvis trailhead. They searched the access route. They didn't find him. Nobody checked the station. Nobody read his logs. Nobody noticed his margin notes. Until me. 15 years later, Marcus saw the same thing Elena saw. He just didn't last long enough to document it. Elena did. 3 years of daily observations, over 1,000 reports, a complete operational profile of whatever was moving through the Keating River corridor. She gave up her career, her safety, and every person who loved her to build that record. The third explanation was the one I wanted to believe, that Elena had been alone too long. That isolation had eroded her judgment, that the data was a construct, a brilliant woman cut off from human contact, building an elaborate system to impose meaning on random noise. It happens. Prolonged isolation does that to people. Then Espinosa found the photographs. Elena had hidden a dry bag under a rock cairn 50 yards east of the station. Inside were 300 photographs, physical prints, shot on a 35mm film camera, developed at a pharmacy in Orvis during her resupply trips. The photographs were taken from the station's vantage point using a telephoto lens. They showed the valley below, and they confirmed everything the encoded weather reports described. Vehicles on a road that doesn't appear on any map. A road cut through the forest floor, concealed by canopy, invisible from the air. Figures moving along the road at night, captured in grainy long-exposure shots. Equipment, containers, supply caches staged at intervals along the route. One photograph was different from the rest, sharper, taken in early morning light instead of the usual long-exposure night shots. A flatbed truck parked under tree cover at what looked like a staging area. 2 figures standing beside it, and on the bed of the truck, partially covered by a dark tarp. A row of shapes that I looked at for a long time, before I understood what I was seeing. I'm not going to describe the photograph. I've thought about whether I should, and I've decided I shouldn't. I will say that I understand why Elena stayed for 3 years, and I understand why whoever is operating that corridor can't let anyone document it. Elena wasn't delusional. She was meticulous. Her journal's final entries were dated 3 weeks before we arrived. March 1st. Pattern break. Increased activity. Vehicles 3 nights running. First time in 14 months. March 4th. They came closer. I found boot prints at the tree line. 200 meters from the station. Never been that close before. I read that entry and looked at the station's west window. The tree line is visible from there. 200 meters. You could stand at those trees and see the light in the station window. You could see someone sitting at this desk. Elena could have been right here doing a crossword in blue ink. And someone was standing in the dark, watching her. For 3 years, she'd been watching them. Now they were watching her back. March 6th. Someone was at the east sensor array last night. The housing was opened. The anemometer was turned. They were checking whether the station was transmitting. I understood what that meant. The anemometer is part of the wind speed sensor. If you rotate the cups and the satellite uplink is active, the data center registers a spike. An alert gets flagged. Someone checks. But Elena had disabled the uplink 3 years ago. She had pulled the circuit boards herself. She had made the station invisible. Dark. Disconnected from every digital system that might draw attention. And now someone was testing to confirm exactly that. Whatever this woman had seen, whatever she had recorded, none of it had been transmitted. None of it had reached anyone through any channel they could intercept. They didn't know about the Manila Envelopes, March 8th. They know I'm here. Footprints in the frost at the door. Not mine. Someone stood outside the station last night. They didn't come in. They stood there. I looked at the station door. The reinforced steel door, rated for 100-mile-an-hour wind. Elena was on one side of it. Someone was on the other. Standing in the frost. At 9,000 feet. In the dark. Deciding what to do. March 10th. If you're reading this, the cache coordinates are in the final report. Everything is there. I'm going out the South Ridge. Don't take the main trail. March 10th was her last entry. I checked the final weather report in the filing box, the one dated March 10th. Every field contained the same value. Every field. Temperature, wind, pressure, precipitation. The same 8-digit number repeated across the entire form. It was a coordinate pair. 47.8431 north, 115.6287 west. A point on the south ridge of Mount Keating, 3 miles from the station. A route that drops toward a logging road on the opposite side of the mountain. The direction Elena said she was going. I radioed this in on our satellite phone. A search team went to those coordinates 4 days later. They found a backpack, a camera with 3 exposed rolls of film, a field notebook with additional coded observations, a water bottle, a fleece jacket, the flannel I'd seen on the clothesline when we first entered the station. 6 miles down the South Ridge, on a rock face. They didn't find Elena. The trail went cold a half-mile past the coordinate point. No further evidence, no tracks, no shelter, no remains. Elena Vasquez is still listed as a missing person. After I came down from the mountain, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went back to the Missoula regional office and pulled the complete intake log for Station 34 Bravo's handwritten reports. Every entry, date received, date stamped, filed by Diane Mercer, every single one. 1,096 reports over 3 years. Not once did Diane flag the irregularity. Not once did she question why a fully automated station was submitting handwritten reports by mail. I sat in the office with the intake log open on the table and did the math 3 times. Diane Mercer didn't start filing the handwritten reports in January 2021, when the satellite uplink went dark. She started in December 2020, 3 weeks before Elena's contract ended, before the transmitter was disabled, before the digital reports stopped. Someone set up the reporting channel before Elena started watching, which means Elena didn't decide to stay on her own. Someone asked her to, someone who already knew what was happening in the Keating River corridor, someone who needed a trained observer at 9,200 feet, who saw Elena Vasquez, a brilliant atmospheric scientist with a 6-month posting, and decided she would stay longer. Diane Mercer wasn't a negligent clerk who failed to question unusual paperwork. She was the other end of a channel, a handler, a contact, a partner in something that was planned before Elena's contract ended. Elena was deployed. The ring she brought for Sarah, the Thursday calls to her mother, the career she left behind. She was told it mattered, that the record mattered, that what she was documenting in those weather reports was important enough to justify what she was giving up. And when her position was compromised, when whoever operated the corridor discovered the station was occupied, Diane Mercer disappeared. The handler vanished. The channel closed, and Elena was alone on a mountain with no extraction plan, trying to reach a logging road on the South Ridge with 3 years of evidence in her backpack. I went back to the regional office one more time last week. I wanted to check something. I pulled the personnel file for Marcus Webb, the technician who disappeared in 2009. I wanted to see who had processed his final reports. The filing clerk was patient with me. She dug through the archives. She found Webb's reports from 2008 and 2009. Standard printed forms, submitted digitally. Nothing unusual, except the last 3. February and March 2009. The months when Marcus started noticing the lights in the valley. Those 3 reports were filed differently. They weren't submitted through the digital system. They were printed, handwritten notes, added in the margins, and filed manually. Filed by Diane Mercer. Diane started at the Missoula office in 2007. Marcus Webb was posted to 34-Bravo in 2008. He noticed the corridor. He wrote his margin notes. Diane filed his reports separately, manually. Then Marcus disappeared. 12 years later, Elena Vasquez was posted to the same station. She noticed the same corridor. And Diane was still there, waiting, ready. I don't know if Diane Mercer recruited Elena. I don't know if she recruited Marcus Webb before her. I don't know how many people have been posted to Station 34 Bravo over the years and seen the lights in the valley and been approached by a quiet administrative coordinator who told them it mattered. Who told them to stay. Who told them to watch. I don't know where Diane Mercer is now. I know where the station is. It's still there. The sensor array is still running. I reinstalled the transmitter boards. The satellite uplink is active again. Data is flowing normally. But I keep thinking about something. The station's position. 9,200 feet on the north face of Mount Keating. It's the only permanent installation with a clear line of sight into the Keating River drainage. The only fixed vantage point over that corridor. The station was built in 1987. I pulled the construction authorization, submitted by the Regional Planning Office, approved by the Department of Commerce through NOAA, standard process. The authorization request was filed by a junior administrative coordinator in the Missoula office. Her name was Diane Mercer. She was 23 years old. The station was never just a weather station. It was built to watch the valley. The weather monitoring was the cover, the sensors, the data feed, the standardized reports. All of it. A framework for an observation post, disguised as infrastructure, installed on a mountaintop 37 years ago by someone who knew the corridor existed before anyone else did. Every technician who's been posted there has been a potential recruit. Most of them didn't notice anything. They did their 6 months, filed their reports, and left. Marcus noticed. He lasted 10 months. Elena noticed. She lasted 3 years. I noticed. And I left. The investigation into the Keating River corridor is ongoing. I've been told not to discuss my findings. A man from an agency I didn't recognize interviewed me for 4 hours and took the photographs. He didn't take the weather reports. He didn't ask about them. I don't think he knew about the encoding. I still have Elena's observation key. I copied it from her journal before I turned it over. It's in my filing cabinet at home, in a folder with a handwritten label that says 34-Bravo. I also have one photograph, the last one on the last roll of film from Elena's camera. I kept it before the rest were collected. It's a self-portrait, taken inside the station. Elena is sitting at the desk. She's thinner than her university photo. Her hair is longer. She's wearing a flannel shirt and she's holding a completed crossword puzzle up to the camera. On her left hand, a ring. She's not smiling, exactly. But she's looking at the lens with an expression I've thought about every day since. It's the expression of someone who knows what they're doing matters, and knows it might not be enough. I drive past the turnoff to Orvis every time I head to a job in the Western District. The trailhead sign is visible from the highway. I slow down every time. I don't stop. But last Thursday, I got a call at the office. The regional data center flagged an anomaly in the feed from station 34 Bravo. The digital reports are transmitting normally. Temperature, wind, pressure, precipitation, all within expected ranges. But someone is also mailing handwritten reports again from the post office in Orvis. The first one arrived yesterday. Same Manila envelope, same NWS form, same blue ink. The temperature reading was 1. Wind speed was 14. Wind direction was southwest. I looked at Elena's observation key. 1 person, 2 p.m. Approaching from the southwest. The southwest approach leads from the Orvis trailhead up the main access trail. Someone is at the station, and they're watching the trail I would take to reach them. I haven't told anyone yet. I don't know who to tell. Because somewhere in the system, someone built that station for a reason. Someone has been placing observers on that mountain for 37 years, and whoever it is decided once that the observers were expendable. Marcus Webb, Elena Vasquez. I keep the photograph on my desk at home. Elena holding her crossword puzzle, that ring on her finger, that expression. Elena's girlfriend, Sarah, still lives in Missoula. Elena's mother, Rosa, still waits in Tucson. Neither of them knows their daughter was alive on that mountain for 3 years. Watching the valley, encoding what she saw into weather reports, choosing every single day not to call, because a phone signal from the summit of Mount Keating would have been visible on every scanner in that corridor, and Elena knew it. She chose the record over the call, every Thursday for 3 years. I think about that when I drive past the turnoff, and every time I keep driving.